So we're living in interesting times. COVID was projected to slow down or even crash the real estate market, but it's actually shown us the opposite. Here are 3 quick and easy ways to know where the real estate market is going. First, look at the history and look for trends. Number 2, look at the rules around mortgages. And 3, call your favorite realtor and get me working for you. Homes are selling quickly as buyers try to capitalize on the low mortgage rates before they rise back up to last year's levels. We may see a little bit of a burst of activity just before a cool down by midsummer as buyers are trying to get in before the stress test new rules are implemented. More new listings are expected in April, May, and June of 2021, as they traditionally do heading into the spring. However, the buyers are buying, so the pool of buyers may be getting less and less now with the new lending rules coming into play as of June 1st. And there will be even less buyers that can afford. So let's have a look at the history of new listings to show you what I mean. Okay, so this is a graph of the new listings for the last 5 years. So as you can see in the spring, there's always an upward trend of new listings for the Fort St. John real estate market. And so in the spring here, you'll see from all the way from December, we start to see an uptick in the number of new listings. And we will just disregard last year because we are all trying to forget last year. But from the spring of last year, we saw a peak of new listings around April to even July. And then in 2018, you saw an uptick in new listings, which peaked in May. Then in 2017, you'll see an uptick in new listings, which peaked in June. So the next thing that we want to look at, so that's new listings, how many new listings are coming online. The next thing that you want to look at is how many active listings. So right now we are sitting at the lowest amount of inventory that we have seen in the last 5 years, minimal. But again, we'll forget 2020 because those numbers are will start to get skewed because of COVID about 12 months ago, right? So we'll disregard 2020 numbers and we'll look at 2019. It started to peak in the total amount of listings here in the summer around July, August, and then in 2018, June or so again in the summertime, and then August of 2017, and then peaked in around June of 2016. So what this shows us is when it peaks in the summertime, so there's less buyers. So there's a bunch of new listings that will start to come out now. And then around the summertime, because there's less people looking and people usually want to be moved in by May long weekend, I always find that it starts to slow down. Now that's just a trend that I've noticed, and that's just what I've seen. But I start to see that. And so around the summertime, people start to focus on the summer holidays and the kids are out of school and holidaying. Now this year may be very different because we're not holidaying. So, but that's just what I've seen and noticed in the trends. And so when it starts to peak here, then what ends up happening is prices start to potentially soften, or it'll just take longer days on market to sell a house. Then when we see and look at the sales, so last month in March, we saw 58 sales, so it's starting to climb up in the amount of sales, and we're just going to disregard 2020. But in 2019, we saw it started to peak in 2019, May. Like I said, it starts to, most people, it starts to die down by May long weekend. So that's kind of, and then people focus on the summer. And then again here, last year it actually did continue on, like it did peak in around May, June, or August, but it just remained stable there. And then the 2017 peaked in June. So just right after peaked in May, and then we started to slow down. So those kind of trends, that's what I'm looking for. We start to see, we just start to look at the trends here for the past 5 years, and typically it starts to peak in the amount of new listings in the springtime or into summer. So somewhere between April to July, August, and then we have the most amount of inventory around in the summertime, and then in sales, it starts to peak around May long weekend, and then sales just start to stabilize. So we might start to see a slowdown in sales. So what is the stress test? On April 8th, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, or otherwise known as OSFI, proposed higher mortgage stress test levels, making it harder to qualify for home loans. It's to ensure if the interest rates go higher, you can afford to pay it. This will make it harder to qualify for a home loan, shrinking the pool of qualified buyers and ultimately bringing down some of that upward pressure on the housing prices. If you're already pre-approved, you'll be fine. If you're not pre-approved, I recommend that you go get pre-approved fast because the deadline is June 1st. Speak with your mortgage specialist, not me, speak with your mortgage specialist and see how this will impact your personal situation. However, if this policy was if the desired effect is slow down the home value appreciation market, it may be a good thing for first-time home buyers in the long run, but then you just might pay the higher interest rates. The housing market is largely driven by two factors. One is a shortage of available housing inventory, and second, extremely low rates. We'll start to see an increase in inventory due to three reasons. We traditionally see an uptick of inventory as we usually do this time of year, like I just showed you in the graphs. And also building season is also upon us. So because our building season is so short. So we'll see builders trying to start sell up some of their inventory, take advantage of the market right now. And then lastly, OSFI changes to the lending rules for the financial institutions will have an impact on housing inventory in the long term. So if you're looking to sell your house, basically what I'm trying to say is listen to your realtor, look at the trends, don't be stubborn, and try to take advantage of the market, but also don't hold out for that little bit extra because eventually the business may start to cool off. Yes, interest rates are on the rise. Let's put this into perspective though, because they really aren't that high. They still are sub 3% currently. And my mom paid 18% in the 80s and she still survived. So if she can do it, you guys can do it. So you're laughing at 3% or even 5%. There will be some buyers out there that still won't buy because they still think that, or they think that interest rates are too high and they're tripping over the dollars just to pick up the pennies. But I'm sure you've heard the old adage, do you know when the best time to buy a house is? Well, it was 20 years ago and the next best time to buy a house is today. So by the way, the posted interest rates 20 years ago were 7.5%. So you're fine. So number one, to recap, look at the history and the trends. Number two, look at the rules around mortgages because they can impact the way that people are buying. And number three, call your favorite realtor and get me working for you. Thanks again for watching and see you guys next month.